During our son's parent-teacher meeting, my wife joked, "He tries to help with homework, but honestly, he's dumber than the kids." The teacher laughed uncomfortably. I just smiled. A month later, she was explaining custody papers. There are moments that change your life. Most of them are big and loud, like a car crash or a wedding. Mine was quiet. It was the sound of my wife's condescending little laugh in a stuffy, overheated classroom, and it was the moment I knew my marriage was over. I just had to figure out how to blow it up without taking my son down with it. Let me give you the rundown. My name is Paul. I'm 42. My wife, Jessica, is 38. We've been married for 12 years. We have a 10-year-old son, Leo. I own a small business that does custom metal fabrication. I work with my hands. I build things that are strong and real. I'm not a fancy guy. I didn't go to some Ivy League school. Jessica did, and for 12 years, she has never, ever let me forget it. She's a corporate lawyer, smart, sharp, and absolutely ruthless. In the beginning, I thought our differences were a good thing. She was the brains, I was the brawn, a team. But over the years, that dynamic curdled. In her eyes, I wasn't her partner, I was her pet project. The simple, working-class husband she could trot out to show how grounded she was before making a joke at my expense to put me back in my place. The jokes were constant. At dinner parties, if I talked about a project I was proud of, she'd chime in with something like, "It's so cute how excited he gets about playing with his tools." In front of her family, she'd correct my grammar like I was a child. But the worst of it was what she was doing to our son. She was teaching Leo to see me the same way she did, as a lovable but ultimately incompetent fool. If he asked me for help with his math homework, she'd sigh dramatically and say, "Why don't you wait for me, honey? Daddy gets confused with the big numbers." I tried to fight it. We had a dozen screaming matches about it. Each one ended the same way, with me being accused of being insecure and oversensitive, and with her giving me the silent treatment for a week until I finally gave in, just for the sake of peace in the house. I was trapped. If I left, I was terrified she would use her money and her legal connections to take my son from me. So I stayed. I took the hits. I let her chip away at my dignity, piece by piece, because I couldn't bear the thought of losing my boy. Then came the parent-teacher meeting last month. Leo was struggling a bit in science. Nothing major, just having a hard time with some of the concepts. We were all sitting at a tiny table in his classroom, me, Jessica, and his teacher, a kind but flustered woman named Mrs. Davison. Mrs. Davison was explaining a new project. "We're encouraging the parents to get involved to help the kids build their models at home," she said. Jessica let out a little, tinkling laugh. "Well, I'll be handling that, of course," she said, patting my arm in that fake, placating way of hers. Then she looked at Mrs. Davison, leaned in as if sharing a hilarious secret, and said the words that ended my marriage. "He tries to help with homework, but honestly, he's dumber than the kids." Mrs. Davison's professional smile froze on her face. She let out a short, deeply uncomfortable laugh and quickly looked down at her papers. But I saw it all. The pity in her eyes, the public confirmation of my status as the family idiot, and it wasn't just about me. It was about my son. In that room, in front of the person responsible for his education, my wife had declared me an unfit father. I didn't react. I didn't get angry. I just smiled. A quiet, tight smile. I sat through the rest of that meeting, nodding in all the right places, but my mind was a million miles away. The part of me that had been scared, the part that had been willing to endure anything to keep the peace, just died. It was replaced by a cold, hard resolve. I wasn't just going to leave her anymore. I was going to take my son with me, and I was going to use her own arrogance and cruelty to do it. The war had begun. She just didn't know it yet. Update 1. The month after that parent-teacher meeting was the most difficult and most important of my life. I was living a double life. On the surface, I was the same old Paul, the dutiful husband, the slightly dumb dad. I let her jokes and insults slide off me. I didn't start any fights. I gave her no reason to suspect that anything had changed. But behind the scenes, I was a man preparing for war. My objective was simple: to prove, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that I was the better parent and that her influence was toxic to our son. The first thing I did was hire a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, but the best, most aggressive family law attorney in the city. A guy named Marcus Thorne. He was expensive, but I sold off some old equipment and drained my personal savings to pay his retainer. In our first meeting, I laid everything out. I told him about Jessica's constant belittling, the jokes, the way she undermined me with our son. I told him about the parent-teacher meeting. He was blunt. Judges hate it when one parent alienates the other, he said. But you need more than just stories. You need proof. Hard, undeniable proof. So I became a spy in my own home. I bought a few small, voice-activated audio recorders. I put one in the kitchen, one in the living room, and one in Leo's playroom. It felt slimy, but Marcus had assured me it was legal in our state as long as I was a party to the conversation, and the recordings were made in my own home. The evidence I gathered was sickening and utterly damning. I captured dozens of instances of her cruelty. A recording from the kitchen. Leo asks me about a historical event, the project. I start to explain it. Jessica cuts me off. Leo, honey, don't listen to him. He probably thinks the dinosaurs are still alive. Let's look it up on a real website after your dad is done helping. A recording from the living room. We're watching a documentary. I make a comment about a scientific principle. She laughs. Did you learn that from one of your tool catalogs, Paul? It's cute that you try. The worst was a conversation I recorded between her and her sister on the phone. She had put it on speaker, thinking I was out in the garage. I don't know how much longer I can take it, she sighed. It's like having two children. I swear, Leo is already smarter than he is. My only hope is that the kid inherited my genes. While I was gathering this arsenal of evidence, I launched the second phase of my plan, Operation Superdad. I completely took over everything related to Leo's schooling and extracurriculars. I made it my mission to help him with his science project, the very thing she had mocked me over. The project was to build a model of the solar system. Jessica wanted to buy one of those expensive, pre-made kits. I had a better idea. I took Leo to my workshop. For the next 3 weekends, we built a solar system from scratch. We used scrap metal, ball bearings, and a small motor. We welded, we painted. We figured out the gear ratios to make the planets actually orbit the sun at different speeds. Leo was completely captivated. He was learning about mechanics, about engineering, about how to create something real with his own hands. He was seeing his dumb dad in a whole new light. The day he took that project to school, he was beaming. He got the highest grade in the class. Mrs. Davison sent me a personal email telling me it was the most impressive project she had seen in her 15 years of teaching. I saved that email. It was Exhibit B. I also started documenting everything. I created a detailed log, every insult from Jessica, with the date, time, and a corresponding audio file. Every hour I spent helping Leo with his homework. Every school event I attended, and every one she skipped because she had a work emergency. I was building a case, piece by methodical piece. The final piece of the puzzle was our finances. I knew she would use her money as a weapon. Marcus and I worked with a forensic accountant. We went through 12 years of bank records. We found that while I had been pouring my income into our joint accounts to pay for the mortgage, the bills, and Leo's expenses, she had been diverting a significant portion of her large salary into a private investment portfolio. A secret nest egg she had never told me about. She was preparing to leave me. And she was planning on taking as much of my money as she could, while protecting all of hers. After a month of this silent, intense preparation, I was ready. I had a mountain of evidence. I had a clear record of my parental involvement. I had a detailed picture of her financial deceit, and I had the custody papers, drafted by Marcus, that formally requested primary physical and legal custody of our son. I chose my moment carefully. It was a Friday night. She had just gotten home from work, bragging about some big case she had won. She was in a good mood, feeling powerful and superior. "That's great, honey," I said, my voice calm. I walked over to the kitchen counter and picked up a large manila envelope. "Speaking of legal matters, I have something for you." I handed it to her. She took it, a confused smile on her face. She opened it and pulled out the papers. I watched as her smile slowly dissolved, replaced by a look of pure, uncomprehending shock. "What is this?" she whispered. "Custody papers? Is this a joke?" "No," I said, looking her dead in the eye. "It's not a joke. It's a consequence. You've spent years treating me like an idiot. You have spent years trying to turn our son against me. You have publicly declared me to be dumber than the kids. Well, this idiot just spent the last month building a case against you that is going to ensure that our son is raised by the parent who actually respects him. You've been served, Jessica. Update 2. The explosion was everything I expected it to be, and more. For a woman who prided herself on her composure, Jessica lost it completely. The custody papers were a declaration of war she had never imagined I was capable of launching. She screamed, she cried, she threw a glass against the wall. She called me every name in the book. A monster, a snake, a manipulative loser who was trying to poison her son against her. The irony was so thick I could have cut it with a knife. I didn't engage. I just stood there, a calm island in the middle of her hurricane of rage. When she finally wound down, sputtering and exhausted, I said one thing. My lawyer's name is on the papers. Have your lawyer contact him. I'm taking Leo to my brother's house for the weekend. We'll be back on Sunday. Then I walked out, got my son, and left her standing in the wreckage of the life she thought she had under complete control. The next few weeks were a brutal, ugly slog through the legal trenches. She hired a team of expensive lawyers who came at me with everything they had. They tried to paint me as an unfit father. They claimed I was a simple-minded tradesman who couldn't provide the intellectually stimulating environment that a bright boy like Leo needed. They claimed I had a history of anger issues, citing our past arguments as proof. It was a good strategy. But I had a better one. I had the truth, and I had the receipts. In our first deposition, her lawyer tried to grill me about my education, my business, trying to make me sound like an uncultured moron. I just answered every question calmly and honestly. Then it was my lawyer's turn. Marcus started by asking her about the parent-teacher meeting. She tried to laugh it off, calling her comment a poorly timed joke. A joke? Marcus asked, his voice silky smooth. So, you find your husband's intelligence to be a laughing matter? Do you think it helps your son's development to hear his mother publicly mock his father's intelligence? She stammered, trying to backtrack. Then Marcus pulled out the first of my secret weapons. He played the audio recording of her phone call with her sister, the one where she said I was like her second child and that she hoped Leo had inherited her genes. Her face went completely white. Her lawyers started frantically shuffling papers. Over the next 2 hours, Marcus dismantled her. He played recording after recording, her telling Leo not to listen to me about his homework, her mocking me in front of friends. He presented the log I had kept, a month-long, detailed account of her campaign of parental alienation. He presented the email from Mrs. Davison, praising my involvement and the incredible science project Leo and I had built. He presented the photos of me and Leo at his baseball games, at the library, at the museum, all events she had been too busy to attend. The final blow was the financial discovery. When Marcus presented the evidence of her secret investment portfolio, her own lawyer looked at her with a flash of utter shock and betrayal. She had lied to him, just like she had lied to me. The smear campaign she tried to launch with her friends and family also backfired spectacularly. She told them I was trying to steal her son. I responded by sending a single, carefully selected audio clip to her parents and her sister, the one where she was talking about me on the phone. The one that was completely undeniable. Her sister called her in tears, and her parents, who had always been her biggest enablers, were suddenly very, very quiet. The custody battle that she thought she would win in a landslide was turning into a complete and utter rout. Final update. It's been 6 months since I served those papers. The divorce was finalized last week. As I write this, my son Leo is in the next room, asleep in his own bed, in our new house. Our house. We didn't even have to go to court for the final custody hearing. After the depositions, and after her own lawyers realized the mountain of evidence I had against her, they advised her to settle. They knew that if a judge heard those recordings, she wouldn't just lose. She would be annihilated. The settlement was a complete victory. I was granted primary physical and legal custody of our son. She gets him every other weekend and on alternating holidays. That's it. Her campaign to prove I was the incompetent parent had resulted in her being legally designated as the secondary one. The financial settlement was just as satisfying. Because of her documented financial deceit, the judge was not inclined to be generous. Her secret portfolio was rightfully deemed her separate property, but all of our shared assets were divided in my favor. I kept the house, which I then sold. She had to pay for her own expensive lawyers out of her own pocket. Her life, from what I've heard, has completely changed. Without me to pay the mortgage and manage the household, she had to sell her fancy car and move into a small condo. Without her son as a captive audience for her daily insults, she is reportedly very lonely. Her relationship with Leo is strained. He's a smart kid. He sees her for who she is now, not the perfect all-knowing mother she pretended to be. He has started to push back against her condescension, using the confidence he has built with me over the last few months. I saw her once, at Leo's soccer game. She was on the other side of the field with a couple of her friends. She looked smaller, somehow. The arrogant, powerful lawyer was gone, replaced by a tired-looking woman who couldn't even get her own son to come and say hello to her after the game. The ultimate revenge wasn't about money or winning in court. It was about my son. I fought for him. I proved that a good father isn't defined by a college degree or a fancy job title. A good father is defined by his presence, his patience, and his respect. I taught my son that it's not okay for anyone, not even his mother, to treat people with cruelty and contempt. Last week, we had the first parent-teacher meeting of the new school year. It was just me and Mrs. Davison. She told me that Leo is excelling in all his subjects, especially science. She said he's more confident, more engaged. "You've done a wonderful job with him, Mr. Jensen," she told me. I just smiled. And this time, it was a real one. The woman who called me dumber than a 10-year-old is now explaining to her friends why she only gets to see her own son 4 days a month. I didn't have to prove I was smart. I just had to prove I was a father. And in the end, that was the only thing that mattered.